Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast here on the littleshaman.com. Just type that address in and it'll take you right to the YouTube channel. Brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com, Transrelational Healing, and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that is extremely common when dealing with narcissists, and that is that they expect you to sacrifice yourself for them. This happens in many ways, on many different levels, so we're going to talk about that today. Pathologically narcissistic people are notorious for not being able to take accountability or responsibility for their own words and actions. This is something that has been discussed at length by many, many people. And that's certainly enough on its own, right? Like somebody who doesn't take accountability, responsibility, or even ownership of their own words and actions is definitely extremely difficult to deal with and can cause a lot of damage to other people in multiple ways. But the reality is, it goes further than that, much further, actually. Not only can narcissists not take ownership of their own words and actions, they also typically cannot take ownership of their own feelings, thoughts, beliefs, choices, or anything else. This creates a much more insidious dynamic because not only are others to blame for everything the narcissist says and does, they're also to blame for everything else the narcissist thinks, feels, believes, and decides. How they react, what they conclude, how they perceive things, how they interpret things, everything. These personalities have an extreme external locus of control. This means that they believe everything that happens to them and within them has been caused by things outside of themselves, usually other people. To put it very simply, having an external locus of control means they believe the things outside of them are controlling them. As a very simple example of how this works, a jealous, insecure person unfairly blames a partner for their own feelings of jealousy and insecurity because they can't take ownership of their own feelings. For narcissists, this would be because they view having feelings of jealousy and insecurity as being weak and as suggestive that they would have a reason to be jealous or insecure, which implies that something is wrong with them. This is intolerable, therefore, so are those kinds of feelings, and the idea that these feelings might mean something about them. Instead of taking ownership of these, they look around for whatever their partner is doing to cause the feelings. In our example, the partner isn't actually doing anything that's even remotely questionable, but it doesn't matter. They must be doing something because the jealous person's feelings prove it. That proves that to them. They believe that they would not feel that way unless they were made to feel that way. So someone has to have done something. Therefore, the person who is perceived to have caused the negative feelings is blamed and punished, and everything the jealous person does in reaction to the negative feelings is considered to have been caused by their partner too, and is blamed on them as well. If I'm controlling and jealous and crazy, it's because you're making me that way. This is all just a reaction to the things that you are doing and the way that you are making me feel. I am not in control of any of these things. You are. This is how an external locus of control works. There's no way to escape the blame or the punishment here because this person genuinely believes their feelings are being caused by things outside of themselves. They legitimately think that they would not feel that way unless somebody was making them feel that way, even though in our hypothetical example, the person's not doing anything wrong at all. In this way, they believe that external forces are controlling them. This often turns into them trying to control the external forces as a way of trying to regulate and manage their feelings. An example of this would be the jealous person in our previous example begins to try to dominate and control their partner as a way of addressing their own fear and insecurity. Since they believe these feelings are being caused by their partner, their way of trying to address them is by trying to control the partner so that the partner can no longer do the things that they believe are causing these feelings. Of course, this doesn't work because their feelings are not being caused by their partner at all. That's why this kind of dynamic usually results in the jealous person becoming more and more controlling and abusive. They're trying to address the problem in a way that isn't working because the problem is not what they think it is. They get more and more extreme with their controlling and abusive behavior because their fear and anxiety and insecurity are not going away. instead of realizing that since their way of solving the problem is not working, this must not actually be the problem. They continue to blame the partner and the partner's supposed bad behavior, becoming angrier and angrier that their efforts to manage their own emotions are not producing the results that they're seeking. I still feel the same way, therefore you're still doing something wrong. And by the way, that's not referring to all people who are jealous. We're just talking about an example. This is important to understand because it explains why trying to appease narcissists by twisting to a pretzel and exhausting yourself trying to do what they want doesn't make things any better, because that's not the problem. They think it is, they're telling you that it is, but it isn't. That's why doing the logical things to address it doesn't work. When the logical things to do to address a problem don't work, maybe the problem isn't what you think or are being told that it is. If your car stops going and then so you think it's out of gas, you go get some gas to put in it, but the car still doesn't start, obviously that's not the problem. It's the same thing here. The things you're doing are not working because they aren't actually addressing the problem. You can't address the problem at all because it's not your problem, it's theirs. The problem is, this kind of person generally cannot see that. And if they ever could, they wouldn't admit it, even to themselves. The shame is too great. And we're not talking about normal shame, such as the kind that you feel for doing something wrong or hurting other people. This is disproportionate, toxic shame for being defective and worthless and useless. This sounds extremely dramatic and overblown, and it is, but it's what happens when narcissists are forced to face the fact that they've done something wrong, been incorrect, made a mistake, or in any way did not come across as perfect. They simply cannot tolerate that. The shame is paralyzing. It's life-threatening to them in a very real way. This type of shame causes dysregulation on a level that probably cannot be understood by people who have stable and developed identities. Narcissists have nothing to combat this shame with, nothing to fight back against it with at all. It just engulfs them, and this is extremely dangerous for them, life-threatening, as we said, and often not just for them. That's why they have an automatic defense against it, which is, to put it very simply, that nothing is ever their fault, ever. They automatically deny. They automatically project. They automatically dump their shame on you. They automatically shift the blame to you. They automatically perceive things in a way that holds them blameless and faultless, always. They have an external locus of control, as we discussed, and they generally have very limited self-awareness and very little ability to self-reflect. They are pathologically egocentric, which means they believe that they are always the center of everything and also the only important thing in any equation. This is crucial to understand. Not the most important thing, the only important thing. Believing that you're the most important thing implies that you at least understand that other things and people have some kind of value. You just think that yours is better, yours is bigger, yours is greater. That's not the case here. Pathologically narcissistic people are unable to understand that other people matter at all in the way that most people can understand that. Their pathology precludes it. They're like a baby who cries for hours and hours because they're bored and crabby, with no empathy or understanding or consideration at all of the fact that the mother has a fever of 103 and is throwing up every hour from the flu and hasn't slept for 6 months. The mother is simply expected to do for the baby no matter what the cost is to herself or anybody else. The baby's not being selfish. It's not capable of understanding that anyone outside of itself truly exists or has needs. It's not even really capable of understanding its own existence. It simply knows it has needs and those needs need to be met. The end. This is normal for babies. It is horrendously toxic and abusive in adults, which is where we get to the sacrificing part. Because of all the things that we've been discussing here and more, narcissists expect you to sacrifice yourself for them all the time on multiple levels. Because you don't matter, and they do, because they will face life-threatening shame if they're forced to acknowledge any failure on their own part. No matter how small or silly or stupid it is, you are expected to take the responsibility, ownership, and blame for everything. Everything. The things they do, say, think, feel, believe, the choices they make, the failures they end up having, everything. And this is about having an external locus of control, yes, but it's also more than that. It's more insidious than that because many narcissists will expect you to take the blame even when they admit that they know you didn't do it. You're just supposed to do it anyway because they matter and you don't. This is not even a question of priorities. You're not even on the list. In order to protect their fragile sense of self so that they don't go into narcissistic collapse, they need you to essentially martyr yourself for them. This shows up in many ways, from the very subtle to the extremely blatant. Everything from gaslighting you to flat out telling you that you need to admit something or agree if you want things to be okay. This is especially common in situations regarding blame for abuse. In order for them to regulate themselves, they cannot be to blame for anything ever. That just sends them into a tailspin. They are so fragile that even something as silly as making a small mistake is blown up into huge proportions in their mind. This is why you often see such ridiculous reactions to such small stuff, and why they also never let you live down any honest mistakes that you make. There are no mistakes. To them, this is a critical failure of intolerable magnitude. It cannot be allowed to stand. There's also some element of being glad that they were not the one who got caught slipping, too. Because they cannot be to blame for anything, they need you to be, because somebody has to. There can't be no bad guy at all. That's why you are always the instigator or the liar or the idiot or the abuser or the whatever, because it can't be them. They need this to be true because of the binary black and white way that they perceive things. If it's not true, if it's not you, that means it's them. They are the liar or the idiot or the abuser or the whatever. It also means that their behavior can't be justified. If that happens, then they're no longer the punisher righting wrongs on the side of justice or the valiant hero slaying the dragon. They're an abuser hurting somebody who did nothing wrong. They're not righteous. They're not a victim. They're simply harming someone who's innocent. Most narcissists just cannot live with this image of themselves. Therefore, it has to be true that you did the thing, or you said the thing, or you feel the thing, or whatever. To that end, many narcissists launch acute campaigns of interrogation and gaslighting against people that last for hours, days, and sometimes even longer. They might bring up the same thing every day for years, trying to get the other person to admit it. They harass, bully, attack, intimidate, threaten, and more in the hopes of getting the other person to take the blame and admit what an awful, selfish, cruel, stupid, lying, manipulative, crazy, whatever person that they are. They will do whatever they can to make this happen, and it becomes a living hell for the person on the other side of it. Unfortunately, many people get so beaten down and terrorized by these relentless campaigns that they end up admitting that they did things when they didn't, just because they want it to stop. Some narcissists will even say that. Just admit it and it'll stop. Just admit it and everything will be okay. Or they might say something more subtle but just as manipulative and abusive, such as, I can't feel heard until you agree that everything I'm saying is true. Or, you won't admit how much you hurt me. You don't care about me. It's very common for narcissistic personalities to claim that they are not feeling heard, validated, or understood, when in actuality, what they want you to do is agree with their narrative or their interpretation of events. The reason why you won't agree, of course, is because it's not true. Now, many narcissists will deny this is what they want, but no matter what you do to show them that you understand that they're being heard or to validate their feelings, it's not enough. It isn't even enough to let them have their own perception without arguing, like, fine, okay, good, you think that. They need you to agree, to confess to the crimes that they're accusing you of so that they can exonerate themselves. It cannot be overstated that you should never do this, ever. Just like in any other situation, giving a false confession does not end the punishment. It justifies and validates it, which makes it much, much worse. There is no reason to ever believe that confessing to something you did not do will make punishment stop. Now you've justified it. You've admitted it, which to a narcissist means you deserve everything you get. Now you're on the hook for the crime even though you didn't do it. Now you're deserving of the punishment for it, and you have agreed with that by admitting that you did it. Nothing is ever going to get better in that situation. Even when it isn't this blatant, though, the false confession narrative is very common in these relationships. For example, many narcissists will take what you said or part of what you said or a couple words and twist it into something else and say that you've admitted things that you have not admitted. When you try to clarify or defend yourself, they'll say that you're lying to cover your big slip up or you're trying to weasel your way out of it when you've already been caught. They often construct these elaborate narratives that completely misrepresent your actions, your motives, or your intentions. The more you try to explain or defend and clarify, the worse it gets. And suddenly you are feeling trapped in some crazy story that you never intended to tell, and in point of fact did not tell. But it doesn't matter. Everything in these situations becomes this gotcha moment where they try to create the impression that you've been caught in some big admission of guilt or some giant confession of terrible crimes. There are only two options here. You can either, quote, deny everything and be called a liar who's just trying to get away with your horrible behavior and your schemes and be punished for that. Or you can, quote, admit it. You can agree that everything they're saying is true and be punished for that. There's no option here for you to actually not have done the thing. There's no possibility that you are not guilty. It's really, really important to understand the dynamics here because they underscore what this is really about. Again, there's no possibility that you are not guilty. None. There is no circumstance under which they will believe that you are actually innocent of what they are accusing you of at all. As we've already discussed, they can't. This is one of your biggest functions in the relationship, to take the blame for things so that they don't have to confess to the crimes to exonerate them. That's all there really is to it. You cannot defend or prove yourself in this situation because narcissists need you to be guilty. When dealing with this, remember that you're not being punished because they see evidence that you're a horrible person. They are looking for or even manufacturing evidence that you're a horrible person to justify punishing you. These are two different things, and the biggest difference between them is that facts don't matter when someone has already come to a conclusion and the narcissist already has. Narcissists see everyone as a bad person who needs to be controlled and dominated and punished, otherwise that will happen to them. They will be controlled and dominated and punished. They've already concluded that you're a bad person because everybody is. They're just looking for the things that prove it about you personally. They will find them because, again, facts don't matter here. If they did, this wouldn't be happening in the first place. When facts and evidence support something, you don't need to make stuff up or stretch it into this ridiculously extreme interpretation to try to make it into what you're saying it is. They may not believe that they're doing that, but it doesn't matter because they are. In other words, this is not a reaction to what's happening. Abusers tend to frame their behavior that way, and they might even believe that, but it's false. What they're doing is creating a justification for something they already intend to do. A hammer needs a nail. Abusers need to control and punish other people. It is what it is. Like we see in the fable of the partridge and the hawk. The hawk wanted to kill the partridge, so it accused the partridge of taking up all the shade and said that the partridge should die for that crime. The partridge said, "But it's nighttime, there is no sun. I've not wronged you." The hawk then killed the partridge for contradicting. The fable of the wolf and the lamb is very similar, and in that one, when the wolf has exhausted all the accusations it can make against the lamb that would provide a justified killing, and the lamb has an answer for every single one of them, the wolf simply says, "My need to eat is guilt enough of yours," and kills it anyway. The basic moral of those fables is that a tyrant will always find a pretext for their tyranny. That means that people who want to dominate and harm other people will always find a reason to do so because the reality is that they already have one. This is what they do. My need to eat is guilt enough of yours. This is the reality of the situation. People are not abusive because somebody else did or didn't do something. People are abusive because that's the behavior that they choose and are okay with. This means no matter what you do, you cannot stop it from happening, unless you just get away from this person completely, of course. Even that doesn't guarantee a stop to anything, but at least it gets you away from ground zero and out of the direct line of fire. If you're dealing with a narcissist who expects you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm, remember that doing this will not fix, help, or change anything. In many situations, it just makes it worse. It will not show them how much you care about them. It will not prove that you deserve to be treated better because you're willing to do that for them. It doesn't do anything except allow this person to continue to avoid accountability, responsibility, and ownership for their own stuff. This does not help them, and it will not help you. It just traps you in a situation that becomes harder and harder and harder to get out of in the end. Nothing will help them or you in this situation, and nothing will fix, help, or change the situation itself. This is the way this person is because, for various reasons, they think it works for them, and this is what they do. A hammer can't be a dinner plate. It can't be a pillow. It can't be a flashlight. It's a hammer. Its form and function lends it to doing one thing, and that's what it does. You can't use a hammer to knit a sweater. There's no appealing to a higher sense of fairness here or trying to trigger a deeper sense of compassion in the narcissist. These things are absent in these situations. All this person cares about is themselves and their own needs. To meet their own needs, they need to control and punish other people. That's it. That's the whole story in 2 sentences. Expecting anything else is expecting too much. It's not seeing the reality of the situation. There is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here. There's no reward for all the suffering or the sacrifice. These relationships, whether long or short, consist of people being used until they are either used up completely or somebody dies. It's completely pointless suffering and sacrifice that never ends, and it will never mean anything to the person you're doing it for. You will just be asked for more and more and more until there isn't any more. Then you will be blamed and attacked even more, possibly even discarded like garbage for having nothing left to give. There are so many other better things to give your time and energy and love and compassion to, besides a person who does not appreciate it at all, who can't even recognize what you've done for them. These folks legitimately cannot receive what they are demanding that you give them. This doesn't stop them from asking for it, of course. It doesn't stop them from demanding it. It just makes it impossible for you to give it to them. They will feel perpetually wronged, perpetually disappointed, perpetually insulted, and perpetually hurt by your failure to do so. Even though it's not your fault at all, you will be blamed and punished forever, no matter what. Do yourself a favor. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep a narcissist warm. They don't appreciate it, and it doesn't even work. This person cannot benefit in any way from the gift you are giving them. It's like giving a sports car to a 4-year-old. What for? Why would you do that? Give your beautiful gifts to someone who will appreciate them and, more importantly, who can actually use them. This person cannot. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via messenger, via email, and through Skype and Zoom for clients worldwide. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one about this or anything else, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I teach workshops, seminars, and clinics, so if you are interested in seeing what we are running this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I have several books in publication, so if you are interested in picking up a copy of any or all of those, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that, or find them on amazon.com. And if you're interested in joining our support group with access to exclusive content, weekly support meetings, and much more, we really have a great group of people. You can visit littleshaman.org to do that as well. You have been listening to the Meditations and More podcast on thelittleshaman.com. Just type in that address. It'll take you right to the YouTube channel. Brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com, Transrelational Healing, and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.
If you've been struggling through dealing with or recovering from an unhealthy relationship with a narcissist or other toxic personality, the Little Shaman has a catalog of over 500 YouTube videos designed to support your journey from discovery to recovery. You can also find additional resources on the Little Shaman website, including tools, courses, workshops, a support group with weekly meetings, and one-on-one appointments with the Little Shaman that are open to clients worldwide. There's even an AI chatbot built and trained exclusively by the Little Shaman using her work that can answer questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, visit littleshaman.org. You can listen to the Little Shaman wherever you find your favorite podcasts.